2017. Welcome to another episode of Redacted. This week we are joined by a special guest, Mitauchi, another content creator from Redacted, Star Citizen and other games streamer.
Whoa! Why am I not a special guest?
Because you're here every fucking week.
I'm
never a special guest either. I'm never a special guest, and neither is Twerk, because he's here most of the time. So yeah, welcome, guys. You can learn more if you don't know who Mitauchi is or whatever. There will be links to his stuff down below in the description, or you can type in !Mitauchi in chat. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This should, or could, maybe not should, but could possibly be the last podcast before Evocati. It has the potential. Probably not probable, but it has.
Possible.
We're getting in that. We're getting closer to that little zone. We're getting pretty close to that zone. So, that being said, there was some updates this week to this schedule report.
We had a difference of opinion because you were talking about obviously some features and stuff being finished. My head only really cares about if there are additions, removals, or release windows change massively. And the only thing that happens timeline-wise that would affect a release window is that the Evocati build got an additional 3 days added onto its release schedule. Yeah. So it's between the 12th and 22nd of June now.
Right.
But I mean, I'm thinking much more towards that end of that 22nd of June, last possible hour.
So I have the diff checker up on screen. You can read that. The difference in between last week's schedule report and the week before. I'll be updating this every week on my channel. You'll be able to type in !ETA and you will get the latest diff checker and link directly to the schedule report, where it's going to highlight literally everything that's changed. Okay, so the last update before this one was the 26th of May. This one was updated on June 2nd, and we should see another one on the 9th of June. Now, something I've noticed really with this one, a lot of the things, if they were pushed back, with the exception of like 1 or 2 things, were pushed back to the 9th. So they were pushed back to within the same time period, right? So something that may have been sort of due for the last Friday is now due for this Friday. But there are the big things I want to talk about are the things that are feature complete. So things like the outposts are feature complete, and then they've sort of, I don't know if they pulled this out or if they've added it, but adding the surface outpost lighting is something. Now, what do you think? Do you think that's something they pulled out of what it was and made it its own thing, or do you think that
they've literally separated it out to make it its own thing and given it some extra attention? That's literally what they've done there.
And we've seen on the last couple ATVs and everything like that as well, where they have been highlighting, this is the lighting in the outposts, and these are the lighting in the hydroponic one, and all of this other stuff as well. The debris fields coming in with the derelict ships, that's now feature complete. The item 2.0 ship conversion part 1 of this. So the part 1 of this is feature complete, and the part 1 is what we saw on last week's ATV and last week's happy hour, which we're going to go over later on and go into more detail with. But now, Bored, we were talking about this earlier. You were saying that now that means the item 2.0 ship conversion part 2 needs to come in before this can go.
Yeah, so my expectation is because the 2.0 conversion part 2, the rest of the conversion was planned for the 23rd of this month. So my expectation is that it is a requirement to have that done for that to go to live.
And what do you think? Like, we've seen what sort of is ship conversion part 1. What do you think is a part of the ship conversion part 2?
it'll be more components, and it'll be those components communicating with each other.
Yeah, like
It's just-
I was thinking more along the lines of like the CPUs and the stuff that we don't have access to right now to swap
Maybe
out.
the door lock features or those.
I
moved to
think
part
that
two?
was part one. That was part one.
Was it? Because
Yeah.
they said they didn't have the full door lock system may not be done in the last ATV for 3.0. So I wonder if they pushed it to part 2.
Well, I'm being as all of this is going to be coming in for 3.0. I don't imagine. I think it was just like the door system and stuff like that for how it knows the different pressures and gases.
So it's gonna
like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be all the tech design parts of it as well, though. I mean, it's like they've got the engineering done with part 1, and they've got some of the implementation there, and then all the tech design side come in for part 2.
Coming in for part 2.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it is good news to hear that item 2, part 1 is done. And then stamina. So this was something, it was interesting. Instead of just saying feature complete, all the 3.0 tasks for this are complete. So this is something that I think they really wanted to drive home, that it's not a finished thing. So I know we're probably going to see motion blur, and I think they're anticipating that, right? I think that they're anticipating that people aren't going to like it.
Who's ever turned on motion blur in a game? Who's gone, oh, this game needs some motion blur? No one ever.
I don't even know why it's number one, why it's not an option to turn off in the menu yet. Number 2, why it's even on.
Do you know what? If I have motion blur IRL, I will go to an optician and get my eyes checked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just yeah. Sorry.
Filmic qualities. Yeah. And then as we see here, like you see a lot of these things are out from to 9th of June. This one's the 7th of June. There's a couple that were pushed to 16th, and one which was the doors and airlocks, which is what I think you were talking about, was pushed out to the 22nd of June because there's some tech side things that have changed some in-game stuff. IFCS performance improvements is now feature complete as well.
I think they hope that those are improvements. Anytime I see flight model
improvements
or ICS,
or like
it's
improvements.
yeah. I mean, they hope they're improvements.
Optimizations.
Well, they can't call them like they don't want to call them changes. They want that positive swing on it, so they gotta say improvements.
Well, I mean, we can all now translate development bullshit, and one of the bullshit words, the management speak words, is optimization when they mean changes, and that's fine. It's just we will be the judge whether they're improved or optimized.
Yeah,
exactly. Stuff like that.
Now, there were 2 really big things in this that I think a lot of people really skipped over. First one is planetary tech is feature complete, which is huge, right? That's their planet tech. The second one is implementing that planet tech with a solar system tool, which is also feature complete, which means that they're now going to be able to throw in those different solar systems and have everything running and whatever. Yeah, so that was fantastic to see. And then I think the last things we have here, some things did get moved out to TBD. So the mission board app and the MobiGlass overhaul are unknown what those dates are. Hopefully we'll see an update on those this week instead of them just saying in like a to be determined or to be announced. And then this one kind of surprised me was the volumetric fog being what they showed to us previously. I thought that this would have been done by now, but there was something that I guess came up, and so it was pushed back to this Friday, which isn't too crazy.
It was probably just somehow incompatible with their version of the Star Engine, because obviously it's a Lumberyard feature that they're swapping out, and they're going, we don't want this Lumberyard feature now, we want this better one, which is
right.
can cause issues.
And then new message queue is a big deal that's due for this Friday as well. And then
I think that optimizes network stuff further is a big deal.
Yes, is a really big deal. And then we have the submachine gun, or the SMG, bearing P8 SC is done and ready to go. And then the rework of the legacy weapon, the Klaus and Werner Galant rifle, is also done. So those are both feature complete, which is nice. Like I said, I imagine all of these weapons will be done. They're scheduled to be all complete by Friday, so I'm sure that will be the case. Yeah, and then that's pretty much it for the update. I just wanted to go over that because there were those couple things that I thought were a pretty big deal coming in: the stamina stuff, the outposts, the planet stuff, the solar editor. Are some of the bigger things in this patch that need to be completed. So I thought they deserved a little highlight of their very own.
It's exciting stuff for sure.
It'll be exciting when it's in my hands, mate. As soon as I've got my shit-eating grin when I'm playing either Karty build, or the really depressive look of, oh my god, this is like another 2 jobs fixing all these bloody bugs.
Yeah. That being said, if you guys have any questions for myself, Mitauchi, or BoredGamer, or all 3 of us about our channels or whatever, really, !question in chat. Click on that link, that Google link, and that'll take you to a form. Make sure to fill out that form, as we don't take questions from chat. We only take them from the form, and then we'll get them in there.
Sweet.
Moving
ATV.
on to ATV. Yeah, Austin this week.
Yeah, Austin focus, always the most boring of the focuses, but that's because Austin have a smaller studio. And
well, it's Austin and Turbulent, to be fair. How long? And I think
double trouble of boring. Good job.
So wow, all those feels for those guys that work in those studios.
They do great work.
They do Q&A, which is probably not the most flashy job, but it's also probably one of the more important ones.
Yeah, they do all the net and everything.
I'm not saying it's not important. So like,
let it be known, BoredGamer hates Austin. So just like
scumbag BoredGamer hates Austin. It's not that it's not important. It's that it's boring as fuck. And I'm happy to stand up and say they need pacing with these ATVs. I like the information dumps, but there are some amazing things that they occasionally show on ATV: vandal attacks or finding a reclaimer. Put them in with the Austin update so people really look forward to the Austin episodes.
Well, this is the thing, is that they're very dense with information, but there's no visuals to go with it. So if you're a very visual person, I'm a very visual person. So, and I think a lot of people are.
I hate reading.
Which I mean,
I hate fidelity, and that's why I like.
Well, this is why you're watching a YouTube video or watching a Twitch stream instead of just reading a blog post, right? Or reading about it. So that being said, there was a lot of really good information in this, and it was dense with information. But yeah, I wanted to. There was something I was going to ask you, Bored, and I totally forget. I have the itchiest nose in the world. I don't know what's going on, if I have allergies or something. Okay. Anyways. Yeah, so Austin and Turbulent talking about Spectrum. And then their feature was upgrading ships to item 2.0, which we were talking about. So that part 1 is now complete.
So in ATV, they started with talking about state machines, and this is basically a process by which they visualize on paper, effectively on a graph or whatever, how animations in this particular case will affect NPCs. So they went, if this happens, he does this and then does this, and that traces back to this, and based on how has this player seen this animation before? Have they completed the mission successfully? Have they not? And they work all that out, and then are able to work out what the NPC is supposed to be doing at any given time, and then make sure the animations are working correctly. Is the idea with those state machines. I mean, they use state machines for lots of different things. They could use them for like mission flow graphs and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see, because I don't have it here, but they did show sort of like the little flow chart for it, right? And how it all worked together.
It's as simple as like the yes/no flowcharts you get. Like, should you buy this game? Yes, no. Do you like shooting people in the face? Yes.
Yeah, it's just so
that's basically a flowchart diagramming like how the NPC should react to different stimuli based on the environment and people in it and all that stuff, right? So,
but for this version, it's specifically for animators to work out what animations should be used at the correct times.
Do you think they're using that same system for, like, for example, Miles Eckhart for the mission givers?
Well, very
Based on-
specifically, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very specifically, right? Like based on you know, what missions you've completed, what missions you haven't done, how you've completed those missions, in what capacity.
I mean, for both Rudo, whatever the hell his name is, and Miles Eckhart, these flowcharts of these state machines are for 3.0, basically.
For whatever
those
reason,
mission
every
abilities.
time I hear the name Rudo, it reminds me of Peter Pan.
Rufio.
That's why. Yeah, that's exactly why. That's exactly why. I was like, what is the name that's like so close to this? And all I can picture is this mission giver. Is this mission giver with a mohawk and like these green tights?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Think happy thoughts and you can fly.
I hope that they give Rudo just a green spacesuit. That would be amazing.
Wow.
That would be amazing.
Well, maybe he's based on Rufio or Naruto, as someone's clearly pointed out in chat.
Or that. Yeah, he just runs with his hands behind his back.
Oh my god, that's how I run now. No one bothers you if you run like a ninja. So I'll jump ahead slightly and then go back because you talked about Miles Eckhart. Miles Eckhart, he's getting a polish. Okay, his face is now more evil looking. that's they've changed him so he looks less like a normal person and more like an evil Star Trek villain. And they've also changed his clothes to suit that. Now, people got very angry at the change of clothes. Not so much at the change of face, because the face does look more real and it's slightly higher, like is higher quality. I mean, people can argue as much as they want, but I've looked at them both, and the new one looks better. I mean, it's not a point of opinion. It's just better. But the clothing, I can see why people are like, oh, I like the old clothes. And I like the fact that I'm in a game community that can get angry at a change of clothes before computer games come out. Like, well, I'm getting a refund now because Mario can't change his clothes into leather.
I have a hard time remember what he wore before, to be honest with you.
Wore a shirt and like a jacket. Yeah. And it was very sort of
Is
like
it the shoulder
business
pads
casual.
that throw people off?
It was very business casual.
Yeah.
Before.
It was like a biplane pilot.
Okay.
Before, and now he's more like evil Star Trek villain in leather.
Yeah.
And it's very futuristic. And I think some people don't like the future look of the clothes, and neither do I. I like the more retro look.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's clothes at the end of the day. If you don't like what he wears, that's his choice, not yours.
Yep. You don't have to wear it.
You don't have to wear that. It's like you're looking away from Miles because I don't like what he wears.
Now, jumping back. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so what did you think of the Miles Eckhart polish?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't notice the clothing thing because I'm not that. I know things are gonna change and flow, especially in this stage. So it wasn't something that's not the kind of stuff that I normally pay attention to. Something that would stand out to me in something is like, for example, the shipjackers. If they lost their horns or something, because that's so prominent, I would be like, oh, they lost their horns. I wouldn't be upset about it. But
what I want to see from the shipjackers is I just want to see them everything super scrapped and scavenged.
Yeah.
Like I want to see one of them with horns, one of them with one horn, one of them with like half a human skull, just loads of and random shit like beer cans.
Lots of variation. You don't want to see like a cookie cutter or anything on outfits on that.
Specifically not for them. They need to be so dynamic.
Very unique.
Very unique. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, moving on to the nav beacon. Now, this is something that's interesting to me because for piracy or espionage or any of that stuff.
Everything.
Yeah, there's just so much you can do. If you get stuck out there and you need one
in the verse.
It is dropped by players and is for Q drive bookmarks. So similar to how we have points that we can jump to specifically, because you can jump out into the universe, into the void if you'd like.
Yeah.
But it won't stop you where you necessarily want to stop. Whereas if you have those points like we have now in the persistent universe, it will bring you out of quantum when you get there. And I'm imagining that's what nav beacons are going to do as well. Now you're going to be able to share these with your friends. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, if that's going to be based on, okay, you can see everybody who's in your party, or everybody who's in your org, or I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I imagine it's going to be party based at first.
Well,
or
I
maybe just on your
expect-
friends list.
And
I
that's what I was
suspect,
interested in, because I was going to say that they talk about hacking them, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, so if you have them permission set to where maybe people aren't supposed to be able to find them unless they're in your part of your friends, how do you get to them to hack them? Do you just like stumble upon them, or can you scan them down?
You're going to be able to scan them down.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's so important as well. So these things are literal physical objects. They're
The other
fired
thing-
from they're fired from your missile racks, so they are a missile effectively that you've had to purchase. They're not going to be super cheap either, so there's going to be some
The
reason.
way
to
I
cost them.
imagined it was when you're at a space station is when people are going to hack them. You know,
Well,
when you're on a
maybe.
landing pad or repairing, or
Yeah.
Uh,
just your ship's parked out in space somewhere. You have somebody that comes up. And,
pre-hacking them.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of
Oh.
doing.
No,
I hope
you're
you
gonna.
can still scan them down too, though.
I
because
hope-
it'd be so cool to be able to.
I hope
find
that
some-
both are available.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Like
That's
the
how I
idea of
pictured it in my
pre-hacking them.
mind. Was
Yeah.
it was
I mean,
you
that'd be super
pre-hacked
cool.
it, so then you could just track them. It's like,
No, so
oh,
you're going to be able to scan them down, and they're going to require maintenance as well. So that's one of the other reasons you'd want to share them with your friends, is because
Yeah.
like, well, there's a maintenance cycle. Have to visit it during that maintenance cycle, otherwise it runs out of power and despawns.
Yeah.
But these are so super important, especially with planetary rotation coming in the future, where it's going to be
Yeah.
harder to work out where things are. You need these bookmarks, and yeah,
There's
I think
safe
that
spots for battles, different places to make trade, like illicit
Mhm.
trades out in space where you're doing something illegal you can't do
Yeah.
at a port. All that stuff you want to be able to go to these. I mean, how many times in the beginning did we try to find a friend that accidentally fell out of a ship in the middle of space? And they're like, no, more to the left or right. The beacons are going to make it really cool to where you can actually find stuff.
well, I think there's going to be a difference between service beacons, which
And personal beacons.
there'll be
Yeah, so-
different ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so service beacons are going to be more Mobigas based, where you literally go, I require this person to help me because I'm in distress. And then it will go beep, 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 distress signal directly from you, which will probably be much more easy to track down. Whereas these nav beacons are more physicalized, hidden objects,
Mhm.
which will still be traceable. But I think also that they've talked about the more active that a player beacon is, the more likely it will attract NPC pirates as well.
Yep. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting
so-
to see if they have like a stealth beacon they put out or anything like that where it's harder to track or scan.
Well, it's very likely that there'll be different qualities and different sizes
Yeah.
of beacon as well, and obviously you can place them on the ground as well. Although if you
Yeah.
fire them too close to the ground, they might get damaged because gravity affects them. So you could
Mhm.
damage them as you fire them on the ground and that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's certainly a gameplay that we require because we need to bookmark places in the verse, and we can also, in conjunction with the standard points of interest quantum travel system, this will allow us to make much more efficient routes that
Yeah.
like for example, a trade org might go, guys, if you pay us or if you join our org, you can have our really efficient travel system
Yeah.
that we've already set up. Like
I just picture day one this coming out and people, you like go out into space like after people have had the beacons say for 12 hours, and it's like you go out there and there's just like littered with beacons everywhere all over my screen.
Well,
Mhm.
that might happen, but I'm assuming that in 3.0, where it's like semi-persistent, that when
Yeah.
you spawn in, your beacon spawns in as well. It registers that you've got a beacon in a particular place because it's not going to be server meshed yet. That's a while away.
Yeah.
We're not all in one instance, so they can't have your beacon persistent in one instance when you're not there, when you can log into another instance where your
Yeah.
thing should
Right.
be there. So, I mean, maybe your beacons will stay there for. Yeah, it is. It's interesting how they're going to do stuff like that. That maybe they just have it there for a little while and they work out if it's been
And is there a
destroyed.
limit on how many beacons I can have out at a time? Like, could I draw a penis in space out of beacons?
Maybe.
Would that be a
They
thing?
haven't said, but I'm assuming that you can't place beacons really close to each other. Would be my
For
assumption.
anyone that's interested in reading about the design brief for the beacons, I have a link I'm going to post in chat here in a second. This is a work in progress. This was posted by Billy McGuff, who I believe is here at the moment. But yeah, so I'm going to post that in chat if you wanted to learn more about that. There it is right there for you guys.
Nice.
And that will give you more of an idea. I didn't even know that was until I saw the doc this morning. So that'll be something I'll go over because yeah, like one of those things was I thought that okay, the beacon was something that you were going to hack initially before someone even got to their ship, or as they're parked doing a mission, or in an it's landed on a planet somewhere or something like that. Whereas you guys, it makes a lot more sense if it's something that's already deployed.
I
But
definitely want both now,
it
though.
would be nice to have both. Yeah. Well, now that I think about it, more of what I would want to do with something that isn't both is being able to have something a la, FBI tracking device that you just stick. Have that you don't have to rely on whether they have a beacon or not. That you have, and you just stick that on their ship, and they'll do something like maybe they'll have to be able to scan their ship from the outside, and if they don't see anything, right, then
that'd be so cool.
And that works.
I love the idea, Saurus, of that. With what you said, like literally, you would go up to someone's missile and use the power source on their missile to track them by fiddling with it. Something like that. That sort of shit is just the amount of pre-planning, or just the.
And so, for example, on a smaller ship, that would be a lot easier to spot than on a much bigger ship, right? Which would make sense. So it would be something like, oh, it's not going to tell you when you sit in your pilot seat, but if you do like a pre-check flight check or whatever, walk around your ship and look. But if you have something like an Idris or whatever, if it's not somewhere obvious, it's just going to be not worth it. But the ship's so big that it doesn't really matter anyways, because it's going to be so easily tracked in the first place. So yeah, it could be really interesting to see if they do something like that for the tracking of individual ships. Moving
people, like if you could shoot a tracking beacon at a person or slap one on them in a bar or something, and it like has a certain range, and you can see what ship they're on or something like that. That'd be cool.
Once again, that's going into something like we've talked about this before, but different types of ammunition, right? So instead of like a paralyzing ammunition, if you don't want to kill your target, something that is explosive ammunition, maybe a tracking ammunition. Right, so then they show up on your radar instead of them just showing up on your radar for running around, and things like that. So it would be cool to see those different kind of things come in. I still think that may be a little ways out. Obviously, I'm not planning on it coming in anytime soon, but is a cool thing to think about. And CIG, if you're here listening, you can have those ideas for free.
Yep.
Subsumption update as well. Tony had finished transferring the code to Linux for backend integration and completed the shopping code, which is a big deal to bring all of that stuff into the mobiGlas and into those kiosk UIs and all of that other stuff.
They don't tell us massive amounts about back end and front end and the differences. It kind of blends into one a lot of the time, and you don't really think about like, what do they use for their back end language? Is it this ooze language that we've heard about, or diffusion, or Linux, or whatever? So stuff like this is occasionally quite interesting, and obviously Tony is like Mr. Zerovic is top-notch individual for coding. So I assume that he was like probably the only one in the company that could do it. Maybe?
I don't know, but I know that the Linux stuff isn't for people with it's not for the client. It's definitely for the server side.
Backend.
Yeah. So that's 100%. It is for the servers because the servers run on Linux. It's not. I don't want to get anybody who is running Linux and maybe running a Windows virtual machine or something like that to play their games. Be like, oh yeah, it's ready for Linux, or they're getting it ready for Linux. That's not the case at the moment. Moving forward,
we also had the Cutlass updates, the LODs, making the Cutlass look okay at distance.
Yep.
Or as the picture
optimizing
showed,
it.
A shrinking Cutlass.
A shrinking Cutlass.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
it takes a long time to make the Cutlass shrink.
It turns into a micro machine from a model.
Put it in a glass of water and it grows back to full size.
Yep.
But yeah, getting those LODs is incredibly important because those levels of detail allow us to have more stuff happening in the game at better performance.
Yeah. I mean, the Cutlass is coming more and more along as it goes. It is one of the ships to be expected in 3.0. Also something I'm personally very much looking forward to. But you guys already all knew that. Y'all knew that already. All those Drake ships.
Saurus,
Yes.
do you even lift, bro? Oh, because you can carry boxes now. Oh,
Right?
onto ships. Even crouching box carries, which you shouldn't do.
You'd
That's all
think
I'm gonna do is
you'd
crouch
think with
carry.
these jokes that Bored would have kids.
I don't know what I'm aware of.
Yeah, that you're aware of, right?
I think you might have to have sex to have children.
Something like that.
Oh,
We'll talk after the show, Bored. We'll
Yeah.
talk.
thanks, Mitauchi. I love the pics that you send. It makes me feel more alive.
I know, but don't tell my wife about those.
I
Those
won't.
are
Don't
different.
worry.
Yeah, but the carrying stuff looks really
Yeah.
awesome.
Boxes.
Although
look
when he's crouching, he's gonna throw his back out.
Or bang the shit out of his knees.
I always got told to bend your knees when you pick up a box, but probably not to that extent.
Well, that to that extent, and then not like lean over so your back is on an angle,
I mean, I can only assume they have that because maybe it's for when you're under fire or something.
or
Maybe
like you
there's,
need
like,
to go
a-
underneath something or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully that's not the stealth maneuver box carry. It's like, oh, I'm sneaking off with this shit.
Well, at that angle, you can only carry 25 or 50 centimeter boxes. You can't carry
you
the
can't
big
carry that
75 centimeter ones. It's like,
Yeah.
"Urgh." But yeah, we've got animations for picking up boxes, which we need to do to loot things and steal stuff and put them on our shelves and go. I haven't got any shelves in my ship. What?
Yeah.
What ships have shelves? None of them do. Oh God!
Oh God, what do I do?
Uh,
The Mustang Beta has shelves.
Oh my! I did not.
How
know
many
that.
people do you think are going to die?
Like
to
cupboards
that
and stuff
box?
in the back?
Because everybody plans on putting it loose inside their cargo somewhere. Because people still talk about this. You know, it's like, oh, if it fits, you know, if it sits, it fits, and they're not in a cargo area. I think that's gonna be funny to see.
Yeah, they've also talked about obviously unsafe cargo being not stored in cargo areas. So, and I think that one of the
Death by
major problems
box.
with it, well, I don't think it's going to be death by box so much as spaz the hell out, crazy stuff. Physics does not work when you put box in
Fly
corridor.
out the side of your ship.
Yeah, my ship exploded because I left a small box in the corridor. Like that sort of stuff.
It's gonna be great.
So it's gonna be great.
It's. I can't wait for the videos.
Oh my God! If only you were allowed to record Eva Carty stuff. If only.
I just want to see a ship crack open and boxes just spill, just like out of the ship.
But talking about more of the animations,
Female
we
workouts.
saw. Well, yeah, we saw Sandy doing a workout. If you want me to do a workout,
That's,
CIG, if you
and
wanna
that's
work at me,
that's
I'm
why we
fine.
haven't been able to get females yet, because we need them to be able to do yoga and
That's right.
cardio.
Yep.
Yeah, full female
It
workouts.
only makes sense, yeah,
And
before they can come
Now-
in.
are most of the most of the Star Marine animations, are they all Steve Bender? Because
I don't
I just-
know.
I've
They
realized
talked
when he
about
was
they almost
walking.
exhausted him.
You
right?
realize that's his walking?
Well, when he walks, now I see that in Star Marine now. I close my eyes, I see
Yeah.
Steve Bender.
Oh,
It's
man.
like that. It's a weird thing because I notice him the way he moves is
Well, it's just
either the way he's taught someone else to move or it's him.
yeah, well, I mean, you can tell. I can tell people just by the way they walk. Like if I have like my friends or whatever, you can tell by how people walk. Because everybody is a little bit nuanced, a little bit differently. So being able to pick up those things, because it is a 1-to-1 translation, right, from mocap, it just makes sense that you're like, yeah, oh, that's Steve Bender,
Well,
or
they're
oh,
not. They're
that's
not
someone
one.
else.
There will never be one-to-ones. They do hand key a lot of stuff afterwards.
Right,
Yeah.
they do some little things here and there, but there's a lot of that nuance and everything still comes through.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
yeah. The butt cheek move. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But the joy of this is that they've got their own mini mocap studio now, and they're going to be able to do so much stuff, not just for 3.0s, which they're mainly using it for like extra stuff for Star Citizen, but they can use it for so much stuff in the future. They can put loads of animations in.
All
there.
the stuff in the future.
Well, they need it. They don't want to have to do Imaginarium or big, expensive mocap studio things, and they don't want to have to do the timely process of hand keying everything where it doesn't look so good either. Like we're like, well, I can tell that's hand keyed. They can do this significantly quicker process at quite a high quality that makes you go, oh wow, they can do spinning jump kicks and loads of stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Like we can get some really great stuff in scenes in the background for NPCs, but also for the general movement of our characters, new armor types, new ways that NPCs can interact with the world, lots of stuff. It's gonna be good.
Right. And then last but not least, on the awesome Spectrum stuff before they went into the items 2.0, they talked about Spectrum. So 0.35 was about to be released. Is it released now?
Yeah, should be coming out this week.
Okay, so that should be out this week. I was just about to check
Friday.
Spectrum. Okay, perfect.
It's coming out on Friday.
So that should be out on Friday. They're going to be doing highlighted threads and performance improvements.
Yeah, and you can search by tags a lot more easily now.
Yeah, and that's how they're going to kind of do subforums under like more things, right? So they'll have a Drake forum, but then under that Drake forum, instead of having subforums, they're going to use tags, and then those tags will automatically put those in those proper things. So it's just a matter of making sure you tag your stuff properly.
I think the biggest thing for most people will just be the fact that they can choose individually themselves how to view that thread.
How to view it.
I want to view this as a nested thread, or I want to view this as, and it can
as
be
like
separate.
a legacy or a Reddit style.
Yeah.
Is the best way of putting it. Right,
It's
so
a really nice feature they added in there.
I couldn't think. I found it interesting when they're talking about that. I don't know of anything else that gives you that. Any other forum or website that does that? It may exist somewhere else that I don't know of, but
So this is the thing with Spectrum. Spectrum is going to be the most ergonomic, user-friendly communication platform ever because of how they're iterating it. They're literally every 2 weeks trying to release a new product, new features, and constantly talking to the community about how to make that better, how to make that more user-friendly. And they're going, well, I should be able to choose how I see the threads, not the original poster. And they're, well, okay, we'll have that. It's so good. It's so responsive. I love that. Like, I just hope that the voice IP is good.
right? Yeah, and it's implemented well in game for the spatialization and everything else as well.
Well, that's a secondary to me. Like, I want those features, but just having someone not being like they sound like they're at a waterfall fighting a giant. While they're screaming at someone else on a mic. I just want to have a nice codec which compresses everything well, and it sounds nice for me to hear, not something painful to my ears, like I have in every other fucking game. Yeah. It's just like, turn off voice chat immediately.
Well, there's some games that put a filter and stuff like that with theirs to make it sound like you're talking over the radio or whatever as well.
Yeah.
It'd be a neat feature to enable or disable if they wanted to just have that one filter over there. If people want to make the radio sound for our peers, they could, or if they don't, they could disable.
If they do it well, I just like the idea of it being pleasant to listen to other people.
Yeah.
Just, it does, obviously they're not.
It's that radio chatter in the background.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those space truckers driving down. You know,
but what about the next race? What about
21?
0.3, 0.6? Something.
So that's gonna have new mini profiles, which is gonna add a bunch of stuff when you hover over somebody's profile, for adding friends and following, but also blocking them if you're so inclined to do so. Custom roles, which I wasn't too sure what that meant.
I think you can probably set, like in notes, what custom roles people have, and for orgs and stuff. Probably.
Right, for different. Yeah, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about adding more, because right now we only have up to what, 5 roles or something, 6 roles, something like that. Where this is going to be, they realize that we need basically infinite, and the ability to because different orgs are going to function differently and do their different things. So being able to set those up on sort of an individual basis per org and things like that. And then maybe
scalable,
and then maybe private group messaging if they can get it in with 3.6. But that is something they want to bring in.
Slightly out of turn. Someone's brought up a good point in chat, which I didn't really think about. Do you think we're going to have radio stations in either in game or in Spectrum, which will overlay over?
Well, I mean, you could have player radio stations, right?
Yeah,
like look at for example something like the base. There's no reason that they wouldn't just be able to put that on Spectrum and just hot mic it.
Do you think render detector will allow us, or the in-game system will allow us to like see videos in game of like YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was there for. It's there. The render to texture is so
Yeah.
not only can you film stuff from within game, but you also be able to do like web browsers and things like that, which would then in turn mean you could do Twitch, watch YouTube videos or Twitch videos or whatever. And so the amount of, for example, if you wanted to do like a Twitch RP thing, you could, right? You could not only have that over voice, but you could also bring them up on one of your displays in your ship or in your space station or wherever you're at as well. Either in-game or the stream or whatever, or if you're with a group of people and you know, for example, let's say I'm playing with a bunch of viewers, right? And they want to still watch the stream, but they want to play the game, and they're all in my ship. We could just throw the stream up in the ship, right? You know, things like that. So, I mean, that is a lot less of a technical hurdle than, by far, than what render to texture was. Or for the in-game, taking that and displaying that on a 2D surface. Just another reminder as well, guys, if you guys have a question at all, exclamation point question in chat, click on that link. That Google link will bring you to a form. Fill that out if you have a question for myself, Mitauchi, BoredGamer, or all three of us. We are getting closer to that time. So, yeah, please get those in there. If you have any questions for us, whether they're about the game, our channels, or whatever. Yeah, so moving on to happy hour. They were talking about items 2.0, and they sort of went more in depth into items 2.0.
Well, it's a lot of stuff that we've already heard before, really. So it's just basically talking about that everything's been converted over to 3.0 for...
They gave some pretty good specific examples of how it's going to impact certain systems, though, for people that hadn't heard it all before, like some of us. I mean, some people found it pretty interesting. And I thought it was decent, some of the examples that Mark and the other guys there gave on, like, this is going to allow us to do this, or this is going to allow this feature to come into place. And I thought his explanation on, like, how the two turns of the Connie weren't even situationally aware of each other, right? Before, they had to kind of fake that. So now with this, the systems, everything that's rigged to 2.0 will understand, hey, there's an return there. You can't just get into the top one when the bottom one's going. You won't have that weird graphical animation overlay of two people trying to get on top of each other and go into separate turns and stuff. So
yes, I mean, the idea of item system 2.0 and its full-fledged feature is that it allows massive customization for ships, all of these systems to communicate with each other, including lighting, which can be turned on and off. Based on the power being on and off, it understands that it shouldn't be able to get into one turret if another one's being operated at the same time, that blocks it. And it's basically required also for the interaction system. All of these, the item 2.0 gives everything billions of different stats and things that it can use, and it works out how to chain components
together. The piping system in the ships will work now and all that stuff. It won't have to be just coded individually. It'll actually function as a unit.
Before I get into this with you guys, I do want to read something that Matt Sherman said in chat. And he says, for what it's worth, and this is talking about render to texture, for what it's worth, and while it's definitely outside of my realm of what he works on, but just tugging that render to texture thread issues we were talking about. It's not always about the tech issues, because the tech is fairly easy, but it's also about the legality issues. Someone posting a Netflix stream on a render to texture would most certainly be an immediate case of unlicensed rebroadcast to hassle with. And then he goes on to say, I'm sure Toast, who is one of CIG's lawyers, would have a bit more interesting commentary to add to that side of things, though. And that's, and then he goes, yeah, he says, Dunno, again, that setup is outside the realm of my work. Moral, just devil's advocate speculation that needs to be weighed in with any idea. Yes, I agree with that. But then I also say, okay, how are they doing that in a lot of other games that do allow that? And the biggest one that I can think of is Second Life, which is a huge IP, which has a lot of money that flows through that, and they are able to bring that up. Is it something that they restrict certain websites from? I'm not sure. I've never played it or played around in it. It's kind of like a weird pseudo game, but I do know that it is a thing, and I know that it's a thing in like Gary's mod and things like that as well, where you can have those things and you can go into a theater and watch YouTube or watch Twitch, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe you could just limit it to Twitch or YouTube, and then that's fine.
Yeah, like you choose the channel or something you watch, and it's directly piped in that way.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing
so
is
it's
that
like-
it's quite possible though that they could allow that. So we'll have to
Yes.
see how it evolves. But
Yeah.
the technology is there.
I'm just not sure how other games get around that. Is basically what I'm saying, right? From with a legality standpoint, is it even is it? It could just be a non-issue as well.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
Just don't know. But something we do know about is that the stats page is changing, which is good because then we can see all the ships and their
Not
stats
soon
relative
enough,
to each
but
other.
yes.
Yeah, not soon enough, unfortunately. But that stats page is changing, and it's going to have a very different look, which I'm assuming Source will chuck up on the screen.
Yes. I will.
And also, it's going to be reactive to any other changes. So if components or items change, it will be updated immediately.
Thank
See how
God.
that good stats?
Yeah.
Accurate, relative.
So, there's some things here that we can go over, and we have the legend in the bottom right-hand corner. I want to tackle that first before we go over everything else. We have their size model. Makes sense. We have the multiplier, which is different than the quantity. And we haven't seen a multiplier yet. I don't think. Unless you think that's how... you know what? Actually, never mind. It makes sense. A multiplier is how many there are of that specific one.
Yes.
Is what it looks like. So your 2 size 4 weapons, it's showing up here. This is 2 size 2. Well, no, that's not it, because that's a quantity. So it's showing
the
2.
multiplier.
What's the difference between the quantity
multiplier.
and the multiplier? And
I
maybe
don't.
Matt Sherman can let us know, because
Oh,
I
gee.
feel like this is definitely in his realm. And he
I
should know what
assumed
this
it was-
means.
To do with twin mounts on guns, but I don't know. So, or it might not mean shit.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll wait on that. But while we're doing that, we see some new things in here: avionics, radar, the power plants, coolers, shield generators, utility items, main thrusters, maneuvering thrusters, some new things: fuel intakes, fuel tanks, quantum drives, jump drives, and quantum fuel tanks. And so that's gonna be interesting to see how they're gonna be balancing all of that stuff on ships that we don't know what those stats are on yet. Right? We don't know what those stats are on. For example, we know that a P-52 doesn't have jump drive, right? But does it have it doesn't have a quantum drive, or does it now? We don't know that.
Well, I was just impressed by how many weapons the UM50 had.
Yeah, I do. This is the other thing. This is not. This is not that. Yeah, and they're size 4s, man. At that,
Yeah, this is
the weapons are bigger than the
version.
ship.
Yeah, it's the pay CIG extra money version, and
No, I wasn't. But yeah, Matt Sherman, I wasn't asking about the M50 specifically. I was asking about the legend. What is the difference in between the multiplier and the quantity? The quantity, I imagine, is how many of those weapons there are on that ship. Like, for example, there's 8 size 1 missiles, right? And that's what makes sense. But what does the multiplier mean? Is that like the upgraded like thing, or is it something else? I'm not sure. We haven't seen that anywhere before.
Make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense to my brain. I can only think about one thing at a time, and it's confusing me. It doesn't take a lot, to be fair. But yeah, any clarification on that would be awesome, just so everybody sort of knows what a multiplier means. But yeah, so seeing these different avionics, radars, coolers, all of this other stuff will then start to mean, we'll hopefully be able to switch these things out. Something that I'm assuming comes with every ship would be things like the CPU, the targeting computer. And that may all just be under avionics, maybe? Or do you think that's something separate?
The targeting computer?
I mean, I assume that will be under avionics, but I don't actually know now.
Yeah, Matt Sherman. I mean, it's pretty important for us to know what that means. And there's no description. So it shows it on the weapons and the turrets. I don't know what it means.
might not mean anything. It might have just been like, but let's have another factor here as well, which we can add in later.
Let's just add some random numbers. I don't think they're gonna do that with the new. Yes, Marge. Just you know what'll really throw them for a loop? We're gonna put this thing up with all the correct stats and everything. We're just gonna have these random numbers and let them just lose their minds.
It says M50 here, mate. It says M50. It's not the M50's loadout, bud.
I'm not asking about M50's loadout. That's
that
you're not even listening to my question. My question is, what does the multiplier mean?
Yeah. And I'm saying that they'll just throw us for a loop anyway because this isn't even the
M50's
intercept.
No, I'm aware of that, but it's they're just gonna be like, here's all.
There's two
all
mouse
the
cursors on the screen there, Saurus. There's two mouse cursors.
It's doubled.
There's so many things here that are wrong that I'm like, I'm not sure if this is the M50 or.
Does that make you feel better?
It's like a double rainbow.
Yeah, it does make me feel better. Thanks.
Doing this just for you.
The special moments.
Yep.
I'd like to see a footing tool develop out of this, where you could like switch a ship and then drag, drop, and experiment like without buying the stuff, like a theoretical fitting tool out of that type of UI. Cool.
You'll get that player made. We had a player made one last time.
Yep. I know Eve has one. They have the player made third-party tools. Everybody made the better fitting tool and stuff once the API was available. But I heard that last time Chris was asked about the API stuff, like when we were going to get that down the road. We know it's not till a post-launch thing, but he sounded like he wasn't really sure about the API release type stuff still, or if they're not going to do that anymore for third-party apps and stuff tied into Star Citizen. Because I think it looks like Spectrum and all the other things they're creating are like targeting that they want to provide all those services rather than have players do that.
But I think that it's sensible for them to release APIs and allow lots of wide-scale modding at levels. Just eventually.
Was it not a stretch goal? Was an API?
The modding stuff was a stretch goal.
I know modding stuff was. Which API would help with that?
I know it was mentioned like a year or two ago in one of the 10 for the chair that they had planned to do it, and that's the only reason it stood out to me that when I was watching some old videos about 2 weeks ago, that Chris said within the last year, I'll have to find it again, that he would kind of is like, we'll see about that, and if it was, it'd still be obviously a post-launch or around launch time before the API would be available. But he made it sound like they were kind of like, most of those things are going to be provided by us with Spectrum and everything else. So I don't know if they're still planning on that or not. But I hope they do. I hope they do, because it's really cool to see the community be able to create all these tools and stuff off the API. It allows them to get really involved in things like fitting tools or like planning missions and stuff based on information from the game and stuff.
Professional mod tools to be free to all players. That's the $4 million.
Yeah, that was early.
But mod tools could mean that it's encapsulated in the game, right? Like you're using their mod tools to create mods off of the game rather than
the original idea was to have Star Citizen allowed to have private servers with full modding capabilities.
Yeah.
So that you could make your own game.
That was the whole thing with getting the PC thing on board, right? Was because that's the one thing with PC games, and that was something that they marketed very heavily. That it's like, with PC you can't do this console games where you can just mod them. Do however you like.
And Lumberyard is a step even closer towards that as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
It is free for people to use if they want to, and it is apparently quite easy to use. Right. We'd have to see the Star Engine, Star Yard, or whatever the hell you want to call its integration with that for making a mod. And I certainly won't be making a mod. Unless I do.
Yeah. See, I was in the mod making community back in Arma 2 and DayZ. And it was a lot of fun, but I don't know if I would be in that same position where I'm overseeing something like that again. Maybe more of like testing it and showing it off on stream and stuff like that, but maybe not so much part of the actual development again.
I could see it being cool since they talked about obviously you wouldn't have build a modded game version of the entire universe. It'd have to be a smaller subsection, I think they said originally, of the universe if you did a modded version,
like even
private server.
Yeah, even if you just did like a single moon or planet, and you're like, for example, you want to make your own like normal life thing, right? So it's
Yeah.
like think of the GTA RP, but think of that on a planet-wide scale, or think
Absolutely.
of a PUBG or a King of the Hill or whatever, any sort of survival game. You can throw that on a planet.
PUBG would be amazing.
You
like
could
in a
you
Star
could
Citizen
take,
version of that.
depending on how big the server required is and how much money you are willing to dump into it, you could do something like a solar system out of, or a bunch of different planets from Star Wars, and do a Star Wars thing or a Star Trek thing or whatever. You could do all kinds of different things. You could do like a military planet or whatever.
I thought it'd be cool to be able to make a mod of a small subsection to do like player ran tournaments or something. Like you could do fleet battles, you know, when that gets scaled up in the game, where you could just have a subsection, kind of like they do in Eve. They have a separate server where you could actually make some sort of mod where it's outside the universe, so it's protected, and you could actually play those tournaments and do those things like fleet battle wise. So it'd be neat.
Now, before we jump into questions, I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, we are still taking those in. ! Question in chat. Fill out that form, and we will get it in here. So, that being said, first question is from Cataron. Where should CIG draw the line with the destructibility of planetary or satellite structures? And then goes on to say, will outposts have damage states in 3.0? I highly doubt outposts are going to have damage states in 3.0.
I saw someone ask this question.
Yeah, especially in 3.0, it'd be totally impractical to do for that stuff, because I could just see it getting totally abused all the time.
I think the idea is that they've talked about it, and it's a possibility for the future, not for 3.0.
Yeah.
I mean, they do want to have these modular satellites that can be damaged and that sort of stuff.
Right. So like the touch stops or the maybe the information relays or things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that might be able to be damageable in the future, but it's very, very unlikely any form of that will have.
Well, something else they've talked about as well is also, now that they have this tech to build this stuff out fairly easily, is that they originally weren't going to say, hey, players can make their own stuff, but now it's seeming like, and they've talked about this, that's sort of the route they do want to go for the game, where you can build your own stuff.
So Matt Sherman has answered the question about the multiplier. The number in the circle is the count of items. The hard points that have the ×2 or whatever in them designate how many available sub-hard points are on that to install the kit to. So I'm not sure if that is designating that it's got 2 size 4 sub-hard points, or if that's
so that
2
sounds like, okay, so
this
is what that makes sense to me. So it's showing, okay, your big thing, the big number is what size it is, right? So let's say it's a size 2. Then the little diamond at the top, let's say that means that there's potential 2 open spots. And then if you only have 1 weapon installed, it's a 1 circle. If you have 2 weapons installed, it'll be 2 circle. Does that make sense? So the 1 is how many available hardpoints there are, and the circle is how many hardpoints are installed on it.
Okay.
Right? So if it says there's 4 size 3s and you only have 2 of them equipped and the other 2 hardpoints aren't being used, there's nothing attached to them, then it'll just say 2 in the circle, but 4 in the little diamond.
Okay, so that way, you know your availability versus usage, what you're
right.
I thought that meant that the one in the little diamond is literally saying this hardpoint can take 2 sub hardpoints. Like, for example, the nose gun.
We need a legend.
That is fun. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's what that is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it. The thing is, it's an image, so I don't know if they have something that if you hover over it, it defines it more,
or something.
Which I'm sure it does. But
what we need is a ship that we basically know what it's got on it, with one of these that's made for it.
Yeah.
Such as the Super Hornet. The
Super Hornet. Something that's done. Yeah, like the Super Hornet or the Gladius or something.
Yeah.
Where you know what the hard points are for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving forward, citizen shenanigans. Do you think we will be able to connect beacons to solar panels?
I think you're about to put them nearby.
Yeah, I I don't know if they attach to objects so much as you can
No,
place them in proximity of objects.
So the way they currently think they're going to work, the way the spec for them works, is that they eject out of your ship almost like a mine.
Mm-hmm.
So they clear the proximity of your ship by a small margin, and then they're kind of just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but do you think it's something that I would just imagine that they just stay powered themselves, just the entirety that they exist.
I see. No,
right?
No, sorry, I actually got confused by that question. You're going to have to. There's a service period that you need to replace their power supplies in every so often. Yeah. Otherwise, they despawn. That's what's.
Okay, so do you? So having solar panels would kind of negate that.
No, you wouldn't have to have solar panels.
I would just imagine they would just have some sort of mini fusion reactor and they just go forever.
Yeah.
But yeah. The idea is that you have to go and service them.
You have to maintain them, and that makes sense because then if you're not maintaining it, then the server can clear it out.
Yep.
Right.
It also gives a purpose for different sizes, right? For range, duration, those type of things. You can buy different
That's true.
types.
Yeah, like a size 1 would maybe only last half an hour or 10 minutes or something, where a size 8 would last a month.
Yep.
Absolutely. Purple Cal 286 says, when the verse goes persistent, do you think people will continue to kill each other on sight like they do in the current alpha PU? Will it be like DayZ or other games where 8 times out of 10 someone sees you, they will try to kill you?
Depends on how the reputation system works and how the criminal system works and what area
and where area they're in.
Yeah,
so I think that's a big thing.
It's entirely going to depend on all that. I mean, because it's all about repercussions, how easy it is to recover from those repercussions. If I can kill you, get criminality, and just go wash it away in 5 minutes, more likely I'll probably just shoot you if I feel like it. Whereas if it's a whole thing where it actually damages my reputation for a longer period of time, I'm going to be like, no, I'm not just going to shoot a guy for no reason.
Risk and reward, punishment and reasons to work together.
Absolutely.
And that kind of balance of that makes you nervous and get emergent gameplay when you're like, oh, this guy's actually helping me. That makes sense. Or no, this guy's might be trying to kill me. I don't know. Is he after the same mission objective as me? Maybe he's not actually hostile, but we might fight over this. Stuff like that. And it's important.
You got to make players' choices matter in whatever capacity you can, because that's what makes the game fun.
But not easy to kill on sight constantly. No.
Well, that even gets boring to griefers, to be honest. I mean, if you can kill somebody all the time really easy, and there's no purpose in it, there's no repercussion, and there's no reward, they get bored with it too.
So Four Eyes has a question. Since most people don't seem to like the idea of motion blur, what are some suggestions or examples of games that have contained stamina or low oxygen type of effects without blur that you think is a better way to do it? So
I mean, as an effect for stamina or low oxygen, that's fine for me. Like I just don't want it attached to my head.
I don't even like that. The thing is like there's other things you can do. For example, we have it in game already. When you black out, right, you start to get that tunnel vision. You know, that's what would happen with low oxygen as well, right? You have red out if you're bleeding out. You have what DayZ does, where it starts to lose your saturation and you get that tunnel vision and it starts to gray out. There are different things, different filters that they could put on it that isn't just motion blur.
Would you allow motion blur for flashbangs?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point of a flashbang, to be honest.
Yeah, you'd have the flashbang effect, and then for a little while after.
Yeah, because that's what happens. Like if you look at like the sun or a bright light or something like that, and then look away, you still have that ghost image there. So it kind of is reminiscent of that. I've never been face to face with a flashbang before, but I imagine it's very similar like that, especially in a dark room, you know, where everything's sort of blurry and whatever. And I think Rainbow Six does it like that, where it flashes, you get that high-pitched whine noise, right? So you can't hear anything. And then as your vision starts to come back, it's still blurry because your eyes are still adjusting. I mean, even when I take my glasses off and move around, it's sort of, my eyes adjusting does that. So yeah, I mean, there's places where it's effective. I think low oxygen would be more of a blackout, pass out effect. And they have that in game already. It's there. Yeah. It's like it would be the exact same thing, right? If you're passing out because oxygen isn't getting to your brain. Yeah. It's the exact same thing. So I would imagine they would have just used the same thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of confused why they don't use the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at the example where they showed that one, they had a small video where the guy was running across a catwalk, I believe, and it shows him blacking out or whatever from running across there. At first, I looked at that and I thought, well, that better not be the repercussion of the stamina system. But then people pointed out, well, it was also because of low oxygen type thing. I'm like, well, that makes sense. I just hope they're not too heavy-handed with the stamina system, because if you're like, say you're in a battle on a moon and you have limited cover, if I can only run 60 feet and I run out of stamina, you're gonna have a lot of people getting shot really quick. So they're just gonna have to adjust and tweak it based on whatever makes sense, I guess, for the game overall.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna miss some of the run and gun I was able to do in Star Marine. But again, that's impractical overall to be able to run the entire time.
You might be able to run and gun if you're wearing the lightest of all suits.
Well, and that's the thing, you know. It's like we'll just have to kind of fill it out and play it out. But I wish they'd keep that game mode and then added a PU variant that would have some of the other things, because it's really fun to play Star Marine when it works.
Our next question's from A Little Bit of Madness. So how late is 3.0 to your original expectations?
7 months.
Be honest, and is anything missing beside planets that you wanted in? I just wanted planet side. I didn't care what planets were in. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, these planets." I'm happy to have the moons. That doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
I was expecting it in December though, just because of how he had said that, or close to it. Because they had not only said that we're gonna have 3.0 out by December, but it's not gonna be as late as 2.0 was last year. Right? It was 2.0, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like it had gone in and it was just like a buggy hot mess over the holidays.
Yeah.
So and then it was sort of okay, any week now, any month now. And then we finally got the schedule report, and then it was like, okay, it's like halfway through the year. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think my expectations obviously changed over time, because like if you would ask me in December I was saying maybe April, and then as we got into like February and stuff, I was like, you know, I had no idea. I was thinking fall.
Yeah, see, I was thinking
because
maybe
it's just
June or January or February,
Yeah,
and
but
yeah, and then that didn't.
at those times at the beginning of the year, it was hard to pin down where CIG was development wise, but once they started communicating that, it became pretty clear. I mean,
Well, I mean,
really
I
good
don't
with the
think
new
it was.
schedule updates and stuff.
I think the wording is bad. I think it wasn't hard to pin down where they're at. I think they were communicating that ineffectively on what it was, because it wasn't like, oh, they didn't like. The reason I expected it in December was because he said not only did they want it in December, he wanted it in December before the holidays. He didn't want it last minute like he had last time. And this, remember, was at CitizenCon. I remember it clearly because I was sitting there beside Jeremiah and Tony Z and Aaron. Like they were all me and Jeremiah were cuddling. So it's like, you know, and that was only 2 months prior to that. So I was like, okay, well, it can't be that much further out from that.
Yeah.
Our next question's from Phantom Killer for BoredGamer. Do you happen to have a brother named Miles Eckhart?
Look, it's just the Star Citizen look, okay? They like attractive, bald men in positions of power. That's it. Done. Simple.
So are you saying you were the ugly one?
I'll let you make that decision, but no.
No. Cataphor goes on to say, Zim in chat thought it would be a cool idea of NPCs change clothes. What are your thoughts on that?
I want them to change into different armor and different clothes if it's very situational. Like, I like the idea of NPCs running around on an Idris in their cities and then changing into their military or armor.
Right, yeah, I think we'll see that. I mean, you'll see it for if you have any civilians that need to go into space, or we don't know the extent of their... We know that every NPC is going to have their day-to-day routine.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how extensive that day-to-day routine is actually going to be. whether it's going to be they're just going to be running around the town or the city that you're in or the space station you're on, and that's just sort of where they live and always do their stuff. Or if it's something like, yeah, they will actually get up and go and then transfer over to another station and then come back over. And if that's the case, then they'll have to switch from clothing to armor and things like that.
Yeah, based on the environment and situations and time of day and stuff, it would be cool to see NPCs in general change what their attire is and stuff like that, because it fits the mood or whatever's happening. It'd be neat.
Phantom Killer asks, what will you do first when 3.0 comes out? We'll start with Bored.
I don't know. Play it, not be able to talk about it. What do you want from me? Are we talking about for live build?
Live build.
I'll stream me going on the planets, probably Daymar.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, I love Daymar. Woo! And just dance around.
Mitauchi?
Hopefully lots of multi-crew things to get everybody involved and just hang out and see what we can blow up and get into and do all that stuff, just like what we do now. Just hopefully on a grander scale. That's what I hope. Yeah,
I'm kind of leaning towards a mix of both of those things that you guys are talking about. So doing things like exploration as a group on ground with a little Dragonfly biker gang.
Screw other people when it comes out. I'm immediately going to be doing my own thing.
Oh, I'm definitely going in.
They take too long.
I'm definitely going in. People are going to be able to join me if they want to.
They can find me.
Yeah, exactly. Like hide and seek and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We'll be drawing dicks with beacons in space.
That's right. I'm by the large dick. And then if they get confused, they'll fly to Bored.
Oh, no.
Assistant Shenanigans says, for placing beacons on ships or vehicles or other items, will it be a magnetic clamp or sticky tape? I'm going to say, how are beacons going to work? Are they going to take up a missile hardpoint, do you think? Or do you think
they are going to take up a missile hardpoint.
So if you don't have missiles, then you can't have a beacon. Or you have to sacrifice a missile for a beacon.
You have to sacrifice a missile currently.
Okay.
For a pylon mount for the thing, and they will jettison off like a mine would be jettisoned off a mine.
Right. It would just sort of eject itself and then just stay there instead of flying around. Obviously. There you go. Yeah. And then he goes on to say, will the mass of a box affect your stamina, and if you can lift it?
I'm assuming that the weights of boxes will be irrelevant compared to their sizes.
Yeah, I think
it
would make most sense for them to do something like, oh, okay, this is how much stamina this size box takes. This is how much stamina this size box takes, and it's irrelevant of the content that's in it. It's just sort of they're gonna give them assigned weights or something overall.
Although with Item 2.0, they probably technically could give them individual weights if they wanted to. So who knows the fidelity that lifting will eventually have.
You'll throw your back out.
I'm interested to see how it impacts the mass of a ship. If you load a full ship or not, when we'll see that come in, because a freelancer will drive entirely different, I would hope, fully laden with crates than it would empty. So I'd like to see that stuff come in. I don't know that it'll be their 3.0. I'm just saying it'd be cool to see the impact of that.
Phantom Killer asks me, are you aware the UE is investigating Drake toilets since they've been known to carry the plague? That being said, you do own a Cutlass Red. I own a Cutlass Black, Red, and Blue. And Drake toilets don't exist.
I thought they did on the Cutlass Red. The Cutlass Red is going to have toilets.
Oh, is it? I don't know. I didn't. I thought that they just got rid of all of them. I was like,
I think the Cutlass Red is outfitted to be a longer range ship than the Cutlass Black and the Cutlass Blue. So I think it's going to have toilets. I think.
Gotcha. So there you go. Plague ship confirmed.
There you go.
Right? Just biological warfare. Who needs missiles when you can have frozen turds you can launch in space?
It'd be like the Caterpillar toilet that's just a toilet sitting there open. You have to get your own shower curtain and put over it.
Both freezing and boiling.
Yes.
Throwing it in space.
It's that frozen exterior with that smooth boiling interior. That crunchy frozen exterior and the smooth carbonated interior of flying poop.
Space turds. That's what they say when you throw them.
Ben Dancer 69 says Ben said on Ben's Day that they're aiming for a new concept ship sale each month.
Every 6 weeks, actually. But
okay. Also, it was leaked in the ATV live show that they have about 150 ships made at the moment out of 93 known. What kind of ships do you think they all are, and will we be able to buy them? I think a lot of them will be unpurchasable alien ships. I hope.
Well, there's going to be lots of Vandal ships, and there's going to be lots more UEE ships and variants thereof of ships that are military variants. And then we'll have other alien ships, like Zora said.
I hope we see as much variation in all of the other mechanics as we do for ships, as we do for combat.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd like to see a variety of alien occupational ships. Like, I know like the Banu Mania have no need for mining nor the Vandal, but maybe the Xi'an or somebody else, maybe they have some utility ships, repair ships, mining vessels, cargo transport. I just want to see a variety. I don't want to see like.
Well, I also want to see the same variety we have for military craft that we have for everything else. The more for the final game, the more ships, the better for me. The more variations, even if they overlap a little bit. It just adds to that realism or that authenticity of that living, breathing universe, right?
Yep, absolutely.
But I don't know if I don't think you're going to be able to buy all the ships. There's a lot of ships you're not going to be able to buy.
I'm sure they have plenty that they want us to buy still. Don't worry about that. But I'd like to see more than that. They're just in the game, like for what Source said, for immersion purposes and stuff.
Immersion.
Next question, I actually have the actual answer to. From Hoix. Will voice chat messages in game take time to travel to other players, moving through space essentially? Originally, they said yes, it was going to. It was going to go through these nav beacons and stuff. But then they were like, well, everybody else would just use TeamSpeak or Discord, so why would they use our thing if there's going to be a disadvantage? So that is the one thing that they have confirmed and said, no, it's going to be instantaneous. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're using Spectrum, it'll just be like in any other communication platform where it's instantaneous and it'll go right through it. Because if you have that, then people, as it's cool for our peers, a large majority of people that play, I would say, are not our peers and will just go to an external program like TeamSpeak or Discord or whatever. So good question, and that's an official answer.
We're better than, so for sure.
Mr. Yellow says, talking about Naruto, that's sweet running. If you have watched any anime, what is your favorite one?
Oh my god, there's a few. There's Overlord, which is amazing. There's ReZero, which is amazing. These are all
how many body pillows do you have?
2 of me.
I know Twerk. I know Twerk's not here right now, but I think Twerk, in all realism, I think Twerk's the only one that has an anime body pillow.
Wow, like what?
Yeah.
What? Oh.
Yeah, he's got one with naked chick on it. His channel bought it for him. He has to hide it.
Why doesn't my channel buy me a naked anime body pillow?
Because for Twerk it was a joke. For Bored, it's like
a way of life.
Yeah.
An outlet.
Yeah. But there's no defending. He would agree with me. He knows.
Yeah. I quite enjoy my anime. I'm not extreme weeaboo, but I am an anime fan. And if you want to watch some Overlord, ReZero, both great animes. Do you guys watch any anime?
Yeah, so I haven't watched a whole lot. They're like Macross or I forget what it goes by. Otherwise, I watched that when I was younger. I really liked what was it with the Wolf Brigade? I forget what it was called, Rinjo or something like that. Which is a movie. I really like Captain Harlock.
Space
Pirate
Pirate.
Captain Harlock. The remake,
great.
the new version of that, like the 3D animated thing, is amazing. And then you
Film.
find out it was an anime back in like the 60s or the 70s, and you try and go watch it, and then you just can't. I grew up.
That new film is amazing.
I grew up on what most people would consider the original anime, which would be Astro Boy. I loved the shit out of Astro Boy. I was a little kid. I loved it. I'd wake up early just to watch it. It was before my time, but I'd still wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to watch that and Speed Racer. I mean, I'm definitely not into it as much anymore. But I could say Attack on Titan was pretty good. I binge watched that.
Attack on Titan is good. It is very good. It does have some narrative problems.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. All these have some narrative problems.
There's a lot of them that have narrative problems. Some
Initial
don't,
D,
most do.
I fucking love. Initial D is probably my favorite.
Parasite's good. Someone mentioned in the chat. I remember Berserk as well was fucking great. Shokugeki. Okay, that is something everyone has to watch.
Bored's not a weeb, guys. Bored's not a weeb.
It is an anime about food as chefs, and it's all sort of like this hilarious comedy where they'll make it some food and there'll be like a power battle going on in their heads about how this food is like almost Dragon Ball Z-esque sometimes, but it takes the piss out of all anime genres and then makes everyone naked while they're eating the food. It's fucking superb.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
And then my last one would be, I really like this one. I was getting into VR specifically, was Sword Art Online. And they actually just came out with a movie, I think, like a couple weeks ago. I haven't seen it yet.
That's the augmented reality one. Because I quite like Sword Art Online, but if I said that to any of my anime friends, they'd probably be like, "You're wrong. You're no longer part of the Weeb Club."
See, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
I am not a huge anime guy, but I do remember all the classic stuff. I used to watch a lot of BattleTech Gundam. I do like Attack on Titan and Ghost in the Shell, like classic older stuff.
Akira, I just watched the other day. It's that Akira
Full Metal Alchemist. That's awesome.
So there's your.
Don't start, Jay Lee. Don't you start with that Star Kitty shit. See, I knew it.
Yeah. So
if Jay Lee, if you start doing a concept art for anime for Starkit, I'll watch it. I'm a weep.
Oh my
God. I'll watch all that shit.
I hope they have at least like a little commercial that just advertises it in game. Just a short little thing. That's it. Just to actually make it fit into the game. If they're gonna try and force it,
sued directly by Hello Kitty immediately. So that'd be great. That'd be interesting. No, I was gonna say those, and the only other movie I can think of off the top of my head, like from back when, Ninja Scroll was what I loved.
Ninja Scroll's alright.
I loved it. It was good. I just remember it.
Moving on.
One Punch Man. That's who I look like. Yeah, of course, One Punch Man's amazing. Yeah. So that's another one I love.
Citizen Shenanigans says, "What voice changer will you use for your in-game comms?" Anime, Marilyn Monroe, William Shatner. I mean, those are more of like impressions. I don't think you can just use a voice changer and sound like William Shatner.
A load of people will be like, "Oh, this guy sounds like that prick BoredGamer anyway," so I don't need to change.
I was gonna try to sound like BoredGamer so I could blame him for a bunch of
shit. Hello and welcome to another Star Citizen gaming experience.
I'll just play his VODs in the background.
Yeah. I am probably going to have one where my voice is changed though completely, where people won't be able to recognize it. That's my plan anyways, but it doesn't sound fake. So I'll be looking at proper ones for my second account. But other than that, I probably won't use a voice changer or whatever. Maybe if they have like different filters that you can use in with their thing, who knows? Maybe then, but I won't be using any third-party stuff.
If there's voice comms are so good that people can recognize me by my voice in game, then I will be very, very impressed. I hope they do get that good, but I'll be shocked if it goes that good. Because I've never.
There's a lot of games that are. I mean, if people know who you are, then yeah, you know.
Well, you're
there's
cooler
a lot of
than
games
I am,
like
so
that.
I mean, maybe people just won't know who I am.
Maybe. But I mean, like, there's no reason voice comms can't be as clear as they are in Discord.
No, I agree.
right?
I just hope they are. CIG.
Next question is from Purple Cow 286. What incentives do you think there will be to not kill other players? Do you think things like bounties, slavery, or ransom, depending on being good or evil, will make it worth taking people alive rather than just killing them for their fear and ship? I think that I want to see a lot of reasons to keep people alive, but try to capture them. Either for the bounties or for hostage situations or whatever. That being said, I think we need to know more about the death of a spaceman thing and see how that actually gets implemented, how the insurance stuff actually gets implemented, how it actually will affect your reputation when you kill or don't kill somebody, and how that will affect you when you go to talk to other people, and how it's going to affect those different state machines of the NPCs and everything. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
I've been preaching that every single time we stream and anything about death or reputation comes up, because we know so little about the details of how you recover it, how do you get it, is some of it non-recoverable, how does that work, how much do you lose when you die, and how do they determine what rep you want to have that you're supposed to lose, and how does criminality parallel to that? I mean, because if you're positive with the UEE as a businessman, but maybe you do nefarious thing, will it bring your rep down a little bit because you're kind of a gray area bad guy?
It depends on how there's like another thing for that kind of rep is you'll have rep with specific individuals that might not actually influence your overall rep, because you might be doing stuff. You might be a criminal so well that no one has realized that you're a criminal.
Exactly. And is there org rep? Does the body, like in other games like EVE, all your people that you have as membership, they go to placate your org rep? So if you have a bunch of guys that are really dicks to somebody and you're trying to be positive, it brings your org rep down with another entity. Whereas people that don't have a lot of reputation in EVE, if they want to, they might want to join your org because you have a real high positive rep with like this great mining corps, so they get better rates on their stuff by proxy. Do those things come into play? There's lots of interesting things about rep and how it could impact your everyday gameplay that I really want to know. So
now this next question's a pretty good one by Jeff Murr. The question is, how long should CIG allow changes to the game to remain in place before they consider changing them based on player feedback or another metric? For example, the time it takes you to fly from one place to another takes X real-world minutes, but none of the players like it and want it changed. Should they wait a week or two and make it change, or change it immediately? Example 2 would be a ship flying mechanics are too slow or too fast. Should they tweak it now or wait again for a change to give it time to really form an objective opinion on it?
So there's two types of things. Some things are obviously broken, which they need to change immediately, and other things they'll need to form an opinion on. Otherwise, they're just trying to fix a problem with another problem.
So I think, for example, for something like tweaking things like whether a ship mechanic is too fast or whatever, we need to see the full range of ships that are in the game, right? We need to see the full range, everything from a P-52 all the way up to the Bengal ship, and then we need to understand how those ships handle and all of that stuff. And I think that's more of what I think this is a good question for as they introduce new things in once the game is out. But in all honesty, a lot of these changes, unless it's absolutely game breaking, don't need to be changed until they're in those beta stages and getting ready for launch. And then that's sort of when they can test things out and we can see more flexibility of things and sort of see what feels good and what doesn't do that. But I don't think it's something that you can just say one day, okay, well, this needs to be changed, and then that's good. No. I think it's a longer process than that, and I think that that's what that beta phase is going to be for.
And I think, there's a whole thing where, and we've seen it with even the CCU changes and stuff like that. I feel like sometimes companies can be too knee-jerk reactive by the vocal minority in a game. So I think CIG has situations where they're good about holding the line, and situations where they might try to placate too quickly. I hope with the speed, the travel times and stuff like that, they really do give it a good amount of time to allow players to adapt and get used to travel times, rather than just try to make adjustments because somebody's crying about it a lot. Because you have to build your game around the fact of timing and stuff, but you don't want to, just because like you have 30 people and say, oh, this takes too long. You don't, so what? Then don't go there. Do something different in game or something like that. But if it's the entire population where you see people not playing the game because travel time takes 45 minutes to get somewhere or something like that, then you need to make those adjustments. But that's something you have to determine through data over time rather than people crying in a Reddit or something.
And Matt adds on to that. Matt Sherman says, any meaningful balance tuning is a multi-month process, like I said.
Yeah.
Making any changes ever in the span of only a few weeks or less is uninformed knee-jerk changes at best.
That's right.
So there you go.
Good job, Sherman.
Cataphor asks, so have they talked about upgrading the RSI website, and do you know if they're working on it now? And if that's the case, what would you like to see in it? They are upgrading the website. They have talked about a few different things with it. One we showed earlier was the new stats page and updated stats for all the ships. But the second one is a new player guide, which is a much needed thing. I hope that they also streamline how the store works. We've talked about this before. I would like to see it where you can only see game packages if you're logged into an account that doesn't have a game package. And then after that, then you can see the other stuff and whatever. But I would like to see a little bit more streamlining and ease of use for new people coming to the website at the very least.
I think we'll start to see the phasing out of like certain stores, like the Electronic Access store might migrate eventually in game.
Right.
The UBC store will eventually migrate in game, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right, Source. I think having a flow to it for new players is really important, because one of the biggest questions I get in my channel is new people look at the website and they're like, okay, what do I do? And I mean, it's not totally unobvious, but at the same time, if you're looking at for the first time, I think you don't get that same impression as it when somebody guides you through it by hand. And I think people should be able to go to the website, understand to find the information they need easily, where to buy something, and just move on, instead of like having to search through every little menu to find everything.
Drog Vokun says, unique gravity for moons and planets have recently been confirmed on Spectrum today, which is awesome. That's cool that it's been confirmed. Drog, if you have a link to that, can you post it in chat? It would be awesome to see that source. Would you be interested in a planet with such gravity that you couldn't move without the special aid of an EVA suit? Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're gonna have unique gravity, that's awesome. So less gravity on a moon than you would on a planet, and depending on what some of those planets are, maybe higher. I mean, I know that in CryEngine was just something you could adjust, right, for the level. It was just a gravity modifier. I don't know what it is in Lumberyard. I imagine it's the same. I don't know if it's any more complicated or if it's something that CIG is going to have to build out more of themselves. But yeah, no, that would be cool. I would like to see a whole range of things like that. And then does that mean then that we're going to get that same range on ships? Probably unlikely. I would imagine they'd want all the gravity generators to kind of stay close to the same.
Interested
with,
to see
with the exception of the Vanduul ships and some of the other things where they're low
yeah,
gravity.
I'd be interested to see EVA suits or suits specifically meant for movement on Vandal ships, but also the dense gravity planets. Like you would only be able to have a certain amount of gear.
Or like super low gravity planets.
Yeah.
Right?
What about Titan suits?
Really far across it, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And do you think that would mean they'd need a whole new animation sets, like AKA like what we've seen from the moon footage, like walking on the moon? Because that's a lot different than moving around that we have now.
They might already have stuff like that, but
Yeah.
yes, I suspect we would need animation sets for that.
Or they might be able to adapt some of the other stuff they have, like when you bound it, they might have a jump animation that they just
They can dab it.
slow
What?
down.
Oh,
Yeah, they can dab whenever they want it.
Every time you move.
Dabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With spinners glued to all your fingers.
I'm on the moon.
No.
Whoa!
Oh, I thought it was,
Yeah.
I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Woo!
Where's my, I don't have my spinner here. It's in the other room. Astro Farmer says, with the implementation of NPC crew, do you think we will be able to captain a larger ship like the Reclaimer or Endeavor without other players? Mainly those people that prefer to play solo or don't want to mess with hiring players.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll be able to fly it. That's it, though. Like, it won't be effective at all.
No, with NPC crews though.
No, but he said without NPC crews or without other players. So without having a people who want to, if you want to hire NPC, you can do that as well.
Yes.
But if you don't want to hire anybody, if you just want to solo a ship without any help at all from either NPCs or players, then you'll be able to fly it.
Maybe you'll have to have those, because we talked about AI modules last time. If they AI modules, you might.
When we say fly it's a very rudimentary thing. I think you'd have to run to one comm to start it up, one comm to navigate. You'd be like running all over the deck of a large ship to try to even fly it.
And then it would very quickly get stolen by pirates who go,
yeah,
that ship's been flown by one man.
That'd be interesting.
Let me get this next one. Covent Garden Martin says, as a writer, I'm inspired by the ships enormously, but rather uninspired by the lore to date. Do you guys think the game will have limited compelling story like Eve, where they'll focus on letting the sandbox nature of the game tell the story, or do you think it'll have more of a story-influenced environment with as compelling story play like a BioWare game, for instance? I think if you're after the story part of things, for sure, Squadron 42 and that stuff is definitely going to be more entrenched in that. But I also just think that there's not, like, for what we have seen compared to what there will be, I imagine there's going to be quite a bit more.
I quite like the lore that we've already got.
There's a huge amount of lore they're creating for the planets and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we haven't even seen a tenth of the lore. And,
and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and even like what I'm confused about, even the Eve comic, is there's over 3 or 4 novels written about Eve too. So maybe we'll research. I read Templar 1, which I don't read a lot of fiction. There's a lot of lore and history inside Eve Online, but they do make it more emergent gameplay. I think we're going to have a lot more lore here than we did in Eve, but I just think that there's tons of lore that we haven't even begun to see, because they want to leave that for when we're going out and exploring the universe.
Yeah, for me,
I'm to go do stuff.
I'm not generally.
I don't suspect,
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't suspect we'll have many linear storylines in the MMO.
No, more a history probably.
Yeah, I mean, we will get some that might be part of like huge arcs that are happening in the verse, like lots of mini missions and some of those roller coaster semi-linear missions, but not too many. So it's not going to be like this huge narrative story, but we will feel part of a story, and they will chuck loads of lore up, and there'll be lots of going on and lots of people discussing missions that they've had. Like, oh yeah, I fought these guys and I found some aliens, and they'll be like, oh, this is part of this thing that's happening across the verse. Like, so it's going to be a bit more sporadic, I suspect, than this like an arcing story that like, oh, do you remember doing this mission? No, because my mission was different from yours.
Yeah.
See, for me, I'm not so much interested in the lore unless it directly benefits me. So, like, I'll pay attention to it, but I won't. I'll just read it in passing. Like, I won't go out of my way to, like, read every little thing. I'm not one to, like, hang out on the star map and look at all the different lore about everything. Until we start to see those planets, I don't really care. Right? And then once we start to see that stuff, that's when I'll become more interested in it. But if it's stuff like history about things and whatever, I find myself it's really hard to get into it. That's just me personally. I'm very visual.
Yeah, I'm not a big lore guy either. I know it'll be there for the people that want that aspect of it, and I like the fact if there's any history cues that kind of give you inference to like how NPCs react or something like that, so you can get a leg up on somebody else. But I'm usually there for 100% the emergent gameplay in an MMO. I just want to be able to play and create own stories with other people and talk about the OP awesome shit that happens in the game itself, rather than the lore.
Yeah,
that's me.
Haloer555 says, what do you guys use to fly? I've been using an Xbox Elite controller for 2 days, and I'm still pretty bad with it. I use a mouse and keyboard.
I'm also on a mouse and keyboard at the moment.
Yeah.
I've tried everything though, and I do move around, but That's
Yeah.
what's easiest.
I recently tried Track IR for the first time. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't work so well in FPS mode. Works beautifully in the ships.
Yeah.
You get out of the ship, you're kind of like, wow.
Where's my head like that?
I couldn't ADS at all. The gun was like, I'm like, I need to configure this differently, apparently.
Yeah.
My forehead.
You just need a dead zone when you're in first person mode. You're running around.
You know, some people prefer a controller, some people prefer a joystick. I would suggest if you're having issues with the controller, 2 days isn't a lot of time to be spent with a certain control method, to be fair. But if you see what comes more naturally to you, for me, it was definitely mouse and keyboard. So that's what I use. I have an Xbox controller. I have one right here, but I don't use it in game at all. I use it for different types of games like side scrollers and things like that. And I don't do, why did that, it just vibrated. That's funny. I don't use a HOTAS, although I have prior before. It wasn't for me, but I know a lot of people really like that. And then using dual stick, and then you get into all kinds of other crazy stuff, you know,
Pedals
Guitar Hero
else,
controllers and all that other shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just sort of look and see what feels the most comfortable with you. If you're used to a controller, like an Elite controller, then just keep with it and you'll eventually get used to it. My suggestion is go into free flight and fly around. Just try to get used to the controls as best you can.
Yep.
Aragorn BH says, do you think nav beacons will be negatively affected by the environment they are located in? AKA, so will their battery life or how much damage they can take or whatever?
Probably.
Interesting.
I would imagine not only that, but also how far away they'll be able to be seen. So if you have it in like a dense, near a dense gas giant or something, maybe it's not as visible.
Well, indeed, it's in, not just maybe, it is definitely in the document. It literally says that planets, moons, glass clouds, and all that sort of stuff will affect the distance you can see the transmission from it.
Well, then, good on you, CIG, for reading my mind ahead of time.
I assume that would also go into your choice of what type of nav beacon to use. If you're on a planet that has those atmospheric conditions, you might choose a
more expensive one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Commander Rhodey, any word on CIG on game optimization, drivers, etc., or integration with Vulkan? What is going on with that? I think Board knows the most about this. I don't think there's really any optimization happening at the moment, aside from just trying to make it somewhat playable. We're going to see that with netcode and things, but...
So, I mean, there is a lot of stuff that they're adding in 3.0 which may improve performance. 3.1 and 3.2s, we're going to see lots of performance increases with the object container streaming coming online, which will literally mean that a lot of stuff is culled that's not on screen. So, much better optimization. With drivers, that is much later in the process.
Yeah, but I know the drivers part is like right near launch.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even beta. That's like right before launch is when they reach out to NVIDIA and AMD and everything.
Yeah, it's possible that we'll get them before that, but it's very unlikely. Integration with Vulkan, they are working on it. We'll get it integrated at some point. I think they're just looking to integrate into Vulkan now, not DirectX, and they will eventually phase away from DirectX 11 even, so it will just be all on Vulkan, because Vulkan is much more multi-platform, and if they focus just on one of those...
Well, fun story too is, for example, I have an NVIDIA Shield tablet, obviously made by NVIDIA. It has a Vulkan.
Well, Vulkan isn't AMD anymore. I mean, it's based on AMD.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's the better.
Thing.
It's definitely the better of the two. It is more open platform because of that.
Yeah, you can run it on Linux. You can run it on all the different Windows platforms, so you don't have to just run on Windows 10. So that's the major joy of it.
Data asks, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions here, which is good timing. Data says, with the change on communication delays, how does that affect data running? Will that still be delayed since you could force the game or your ship not to know the data even if you do?
I don't know what he's asking.
Okay, so basically he's asking, okay, so for example, let's say you know the position of a certain jump point, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to say that to your data ship, but you know where it is, but you don't want your ship to know it. I don't think that's how that's going to work. I think it's more of there's no way for you to know the exact coordinates of it, but your ship will know it. So if you don't want your ship to know it, then you just don't save that information. But it's like you would know how to get there. You would be able to give like what is it? Very elementary, directions to get there, but you wouldn't be able to say, "Oh, it's at this."
You wouldn't be able to pinpoint it.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to pinpoint it unless you dropped a nav beacon there.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because he's talking about the delay, like since we're talking about real-time voice and like how that impacts the data running and all.
Yeah, that will all be encrypted information that you wouldn't know.
I wonder, like, okay, so I wonder how the beacon mechanic will work. If I shoot off a beacon, can my party immediately see it, or do I have to send them a packet of information or something in order for them to have it too? Depending on how far
I would imagine they would be able to immediately see it.
You would think so.
Right, because
I imagine that they appear in a mobiGlas app with permissions. You literally set the permissions for individual players.
Because you'll only be able to see it. You'll only be able to see it within a reasonable distance, anyways, right? You're not going to see a nav beacon in another solar system, right? When you're in one solar, you just won't see it.
You shouldn't be able to, or you should be able to filter it down to where you don't see everything. If you
right. So right now we don't have that, right? So right now when you're on the PU, you just see all the points. You don't know. There's no like fade off point of where you don't see them anymore. And so it'll be interesting to see what those distances are. And I imagine that'll be based on how big they are. So the size will affect on what that distance is that you can see them.
Yeah, but I think with data running, you still have the opportunity for some things. You could give coordinates that are not beaconed. You could always
and I think a lot of that stuff will be
that way.
Will be encrypted, like I said. So it's not stuff that you would know.
Yeah.
Right? Like that actual hard information isn't something you would know, but it would be something.
A digital item or something you're transferring. Yeah.
Aragorn BH, will it be possible to store additional nav beacons on a ship's hold and then load it into a missile slot when you're located planetside or in space?
Maybe. I mean, that's an interesting question for like the freelancer Miss, who has a missile reload system.
Yeah.
Or any cargo ship with missiles, so the Taurus. Right? Yeah. And like if you like the Miss, you'd be able to do it while you're flying around. But I think he's asking if you just go down to and land somewhere and then load them up. You should be able to.
I think it's
as long as you can carry it on cargo.
If you can reload your own missiles, if you can reload your own missiles somehow, then you should be able to reload the system the same way, I would think, because that's the way it operates. Right?
Yeah. Or even if you go somewhere that they can reload it, then yes. Yeah, as long as your ship can handle the cargo size of whatever those missiles are, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't make that a cargo.
I like the idea that at a pinch that we will be able to load our own ordnance onto ships if we had to. Like I think it's quite a cool idea.
Ammunition, flares, all of that stuff, missiles.
Yeah, because if you're moving around in a mobile fleet setup, you want to be able to have your resupplies with you and then be able to use those supplies, not fly to a station every time to get it reloaded.
Yeah, and you might have crashed on a planet and your ship is in bad state and you need to get a couple of components to repair it, and you don't want to entirely abandon it. So you're going to need to, before they have tugboat ships, you're going to need to be able to have these ways of moving systems out, like I need to replace my fuel subsystem, whatever. So yeah, I like the idea.
All right, we're going to power through these last four here. Skywing says, if the stats on the Hornet Mk1 are semi-correct in comparison to other existing ships, how much and in what ways do you think the Hornet Mk2 will improve? Everyone that has the Mk1 will have the chance to upgrade to a Mark II, free of charge, and then goes, love the podcast, thank you. They have said that you are going to be able to upgrade to an Mk2, and I think it's only going to be from a visual standpoint on what the Mk2 looks like. I don't think any of the hard points are going to change. None of the weapons or coolers or anything will change. Yeah,
I know in the future they want to have different models of ships, and I bet they'll approach that as and when that happens, but the older models will still be available. So,
Commander Rhodey says, will any of the ship repair mechanics be out when 3.0 comes out? Will you be able to have to do maintenance then, or is that coming later? And will those repair tools be available? Like if we want a handheld tool to cut scraps of metal, etc. When will that come in?
There is some form of repair in 3.0.
There is some form. The stuff you're talking about is salvage and things like that, though. Exclamation point ETA to get a link to the schedule report at the very bottom. You'll see the future patches and what things they want to include with that. Hoiks, will harmful effects be in game, like radiation, poison, temperature? Okay.
Electric sandstorms.
Electric sandstorms, all those things.
And stuff.
Our last question. Back to gravity. What about turning off gravity on a ship to hamper boarders or to help a boarding team get an advantage over a crew? Assuming we get mag boots. Mag boots are no longer going to be a thing, but yes, you will be able to turn off gravity in ships. That's why they have the larger ships, especially.
We literally saw that in 2015 where they did the FPS reveal.
Yeah,
Yep.
they have on space stations and in ships. Like in Starfarer right now, you have a gravity generator. It's just not functioning yet.
Yeah.
In game. So yeah.
In fact, in game we can see one that's very not functioning, electrocuting people that come near it.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's a whole video on that presentation too, where it was really cool how they did it. So,
yeah. So there you go. There. So that is it for our questions. Really quickly, Mitauchi, where can people find you?
I can be found at twitch.tv/Mitauchi. I stream Monday through Thursday at noon to 3, and then again at 9 p.m. on into the night. We do the Space Bro Show podcast, which is similar to this one that we do on Friday nights at 10 p.m. CST. And then I stream to be determined all throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, usually at least 60 hours a week.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And BoredGamer, what about yourself?
You can find me at BoredGamerUK on pretty much everywhere. And according to an article that I recently read, 23 streamers that you need to watch, that I'm one of the best streamers, even though I stream possibly once a month. I'm literally the worst. So I apologize for anyone.
That's like calling me a YouTuber.
That is like calling Saurus a YouTuber.
YouTubers to watch, WTFOSAURUS.
Yeah. So I will stream more. I do promise that. I've been pretty stressed out recently, so I apologize for that. But soon, starting from a couple of weeks' time, I will start streaming again regularly. I'm off to Foundry 42 UK for another office store on the 30th of June, and I'm interviewing Aaron Roberts. That interview will be semi-public, so I'll have things I can talk to him about and tell you about. So
yeah,
that should be cool. But
and a huge shout out to all the mods today, Zeus and Oxia, Sunday and Doom, for helping out with the questions. Anybody else who's jumping in
guys.
there? Very much appreciated. You can find me here on this channel. I'm going to be continuing to be live, so we're going to stick around. I have some puppy stuff for you guys. But also, you can find me on twitch.tv/WTFOSAURUS and on Twitter at WTFOSAURUS. Thank you so much, guys. I love you all on the face, and we will see you next week. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.